Merhaba. This lesson is all about passive voice in Turkish. And this lesson you'll focus on it. And more specifically, you will learn to say things like, the letter was signed by the director. I'm not interested in politics. The door opened by itself. And by the end of this video, you should be able to describe actions without needing to name who did them. Something very common in Turkish. As always, focus on recognizing the form of the passive verb and the overall sentence structure. Let's start with the form. How do you make passive verbs in Turkish? There are three groups. And the first one, if the verb stem ends with a vowel, the ne suffix is added. And it's n after stems ending with le, only for le. And il for the other cases, for all other cases. So three groups, right? So vowel endings and stems ending le, and then the rest, right? So compared to causative, this is pretty straightforward. Let's look at some examples. Yemek means to eat, yenmek, to be eaten. Söylemek, söylenmek. Almak, alınmak. Bulmak, bulunmak. Görmek, görülmek. Unutmak, unutulmak. And speaking of passive, how do you make negative? You just bring the me, ma negative suffix to after the passive suffix. So, for instance, bilinmek, bilinmemek. Açılmak, açılmamak. I want to mention one irregular verb because it is a common verb and it might confuse you. It's anlamak. Anlamak means to understand, right? And the passive form of anlamak is anlaşılmak. It's not anlanmak as it's expected, like if you follow the rules, but it is irregular. So anlaşılmak is to be understood. Try to remember that. Now, I talked about transitive and intransitive verbs in the previous video, and even before that, when I talked about accusative case. You know that transitive verbs take direct objects and intransitive verbs don't. It is important here again, and you'll see why. Let's look at an example to see why. An active sentence, let's take this one. Müdür mektubu imzaladı. The director signed the letter. So in this sentence, let's look at this. İmzalamak is the verb, to sign. The subject is müdür. Mektup is object. And you can even see it has the accusative case, mektubu imzaladı. It shows that it's the object, right? So now let's make this passive. First, let's make the verb passive. İmzalamak becomes imzalanmak, imzalandı. And of course, subject is going to be different now. And we can even omit the subject. But the object will become the subject. Mektup imzalandı. The letter was signed in the passive sentence. If you want to mention the subject in the passive sentence, you need to use something called tarafından. It can be translated as by the director. But it doesn't have to. Usually passive sentences don't even mention the doer and the subject. So about tarafından, it is it's the name to name the doer in a passive sentence. We use this and it agrees with the subject. So You use it with the pronouns benim tarafımdan, by me, senin tarafından, by you, onun tarafından, bizim tarafımızdan, la la la. And you can put a name there even. Ayşe tarafından. You bring back the subject. By Ayşe. And you can ask even kimin tarafından, by who, right? Who did the job? So here's a very important note. Remember when we talk about transportation, trenle, otobüsle gidiyorum, trenle yolculuk ettim. So when you talk about those transportation means of transport, we use le suffix for that. But when we translate it into English, by train, by bus, just like tarafından, by me, by you. But these are completely different things, right? So you cannot use the same le suffix here. They're not you cannot mix them up. Try to remember. It's only confusing when you translate them into English, because they're translated as the same. By train, by me. But in Turkish, benim tarafımdan trenle. Right? So please pay attention to that. It's important. So one of the one of the good things about passive voices and why it's used a lot in Turkish, they can be impersonal, right? So you don't have to talk about the subject, the doer of the action. So let's see some examples. In the active part of this chart, the sentence is birisi eve gitti. Birisi means someone, right? But someone, we don't know exactly who that person is. It's just we don't know, but we sometimes put it there. Someone went home. It's a perfect occasion to make passive. So you can say eve gidildi. And then when you translate this into English, it's really, it doesn't make sense. Home was gone to. And you would never say that in English, right? But in Turkish, you always say eve gidildi when you don't want to talk about who did the job. Look at the second one. Birileri evde yemek yemiş. Somebody ate at home. Some people ate at home. But then you can say evde yemek yenmiş. Food was eaten at home. It's perfectly fine to say that in just casual conversation in Turkish. Kimse oraya gitti mi? Did anyone go there? Kimse is the anyone, like it's used. So biri used in negative or a question, it's kimse. Oraya gidildi mi? So in active sentences like this, biri, birileri, kimse indicates someone unknown, right? But in passive voice, we omit them altogether because the speaker truly doesn't know or care who did it, who did the job. And we probably never use tarafından here, like birisi tarafından. It's just, you don't need to say that. Passive for general habits or customs. So passive voice is often used to describe general, habitual, or culturally shared experiences. For instance, fotoğrafçıda fotoğraf çektirilir. Photos are taken at the photographer's office or studio. Sinemada film izlenir. Films are watched at cinema. So what do you do in cinema? You watch films, right? So passive voice is used for those. Hamamda yıkanılır. One bathes at the hammam. Derste Türkçe öğrenilir. Turkish is learned in class. No need to name who does it in these cases because cinema is a general place, hammam is a general, is a public place. Because the general activity is what matters, like not who did it in this case. Probably one of the most common ways passive is used in Turkish is prohibitive and permissive phrases. So you would see this a lot in public signs, especially for rules or prohibitions. For instance, burada sigara içilmez. No smoking here. Buraya park edilmez. No parking here. Buraya çöp atılmaz. No trash dumping here. Girilmez. No entry. Çıkılır. Exit permitted. İçilir. Drinking allowed. So these work well without a subject because the rule applies to everyone, right? So you don't need a subject there. So it's a wonderful use of passive. It's used a lot in common everyday Turkish. All right, to wrap up, as usual, there's a nice worksheet waiting for you. Review the worksheet carefully, do the exercises and come to class having studied this video and ask questions, and so that we practice together and you practice with your classmates. Okay, görüşmek üzere.